Hello and thank you so much for watching. My name is Katie and this is where I share what I've been making. I like to knit, crochet, cross stitch, and sew, as well as a lot of other little hobbies that I will randomly share about. I hope that you are having a good March and that this year has been treating you kindly so far. I know it's kind of a stretch. There has been a lot of injustice, so I'm hoping that you are finding ways to cope with that. A lot of what I do is to cope with mental health and stress, and making has just been a really big part of that, and I hope that it's that for you too, or if you are interested that it becomes that for you. I hope that this allows you to kind of take a step back from everything that's been weighing on your mind and just gives you a chance to escape for a little bit, which is what we all need once in a while. So the first thing I want to talk about with my knitting is my Nature's Cardigan by No.7 Knitwear. The last time I shared about it, I was about to work on the sleeves. I had the body pretty much done, but like I said in my last video, I did have some concerns. It wasn't working up quite the way that I liked. I didn't love how drapey the fabric was, and I initially got gauge, but I feel like I've had a lot of stitch discrepancy, a lot of stress from real life kind of carrying over into my knitting, and that was very apparent. But either way, it was a little too thin and drapey for my liking, and it was also too long, which I got the feeling it was going to be while I was knitting it up. But I've had instances in the past where I don't trust the pattern, and that comes back to bite me in the butt. So I was just going to knit up what I could and see how I felt about it, and I just did one sleeve. I'm glad I didn't do the other sleeve because I did rip back all the way. And so I am back here to the body, and what I decided to do was go down in needle size so I can get a tighter knit. I wanted something just with a little more structure, and it's still going to be pretty drapey, but I just wanted a boxier and more cropped look. So I am going to watch it closely as I'm knitting it up, and I'm going to separate for the sleeves earlier than I did last time. I think that will make a big difference in the fit. I don't think I mentioned the yarn I'm using, just to get that out of the way. I'm using the Cascade 220 Heathers in the Japanese maple colorway, and I'm really loving the color of it. I think that it's going to be a gorgeous color, but I wanted to, I don't know if it's going to show up with just kind of stress, and I was on another medication trial. You can see that my stitching and my gauge has been a little all over the place, so I'm thinking that will probably block out fine, but it's just really interesting to see how that has been translating into my knitting lately. Because I hit that bump in knitting, and it was after I had been working almost monogamously on it, I was so excited to get a piece done so quickly, and was already bordering on burning myself out on the project when I decided to rip back and have another go at it. I decided that I would allow myself to cast on a new object. So this is the beginning of my Yara shawl, and this is by Natasha Hornby from Moonstruck Knits. I shared the yarn that I am actually using for this of last time, but it is the Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. It is a fingering weight, and I'm using the colors Fern, Pine, Old Gold, and Scotch Broom. The Scotch Broom and Old Gold are actually in her sample knit for this, but I just found two greens that I liked in that yarn and decided to go with that. I was afraid that there was not going to be enough definition, but it's showing up a lot better than I expected. It's been really interesting to knit on because it is so new, and because I've never knit up a shawl, it's it's kind of scary, but it's also kind of fun to watch how it knits up. And it is fun to just kind of follow the pattern without deviation and not have to worry about it being a weird fit or not work out like a sweater would. But yes, I hope to make a lot more progress on this very soon. It will be exciting to have my first shawl, have possibly my first Make 9 project done, and yeah, we'll see which wins, this or the Nature's cardigan, because I'm really ready to have that one done too. So as far as what I've been crocheting, I told you about my possible cat cardigan for my daughter last time. That is using the pattern Mini Cat Square by Pony McTate. I found them on Etsy, but I believe they also have a Ravelry page. Originally, I hadn't made any more squares since the last time, but I have been looking for different kinds of yarn to kind of shake things up, and I've been looking at mini skeins, and I am a little more open to using acrylic for this one because it is going to be a project for my daughter, so I want it to be able to handle a little more wear and tear. But I was able to look around at a couple of the local hobby stores. I was hoping for some mini skeins or some kind of set where I could find a decent variety but not have to buy too much yarn in the process. So I decided to take another approach and actually saw that this yarn was in stock at my local Walmart, and that is the Lion brand Mandala yarn. And it comes in this huge cake, and I will actually put a picture up of the kind of yarn and of the colorway because I have unwound mine to separate it for this project. So here are some of the colors. There are a couple more variants that bridge the gap between these colors, like there is a yellowy kind of greeny blue and a lighter pink that transitions into the white, but I wanted to separate them all so that I could have a lot of variation when making these granny squares. And because of this, and because they have such a distinct look and color, my plan now is to just use this yarn on its own for all of them. I don't think that the other squares are going to mesh very well because these are so pastel, and I mainly had jewel tones kind of leaning neutrals. So I plan on making all of the squares out of this yarn. It is a very nice sized cake as well, so you get a good amount. I have been reassessing my plans for this because I originally planned to make a cardigan, and the more I kind of look at it, I may have to change that plan because these squares might be a little bulky, and then when you add the cats onto them, that is going to add a lot of structure and make them stiffer, so they might not be, you know, as pliable for maybe an outfit. But I'm going to play with a few things before I make a decision. I would love to know if you have any ideas for granny square designs. I've seen some great like tote bags. I could make her a little tote or little purse out of it. I think that she would also really love that. I could just go for it and make a blanket. I want to play it safe, but I really want to have the whole project completely done and ready to go before I, you know, give it to her, because it's going to, I think, make a lot more of an impact. Yeah, there's a lot to think about, and right now I'm just getting a lot of practice in on my crocheting and on my granny squares, and really soon I'm gonna have to have a cat party and just knit a ton of cats. So it's been no secret that I have caught the cross-stitching bug, and I've found that I have been using that to cope even more than my knitting lately. I think because it takes even more focus, and therefore I'm able to kind of escape into it a little easier. And The first one that I will share about is my West Highland Terrier from X Stitchery shop on Etsy. So I will show what it looked like the last time that I shared anything about it. And here is what it looks like now. So I have made some progress on this one. This is 200 by 146 stitches, and I am doing this on 14 count 8-0, which is the easiest to find, and it is also, was for me anyway, the easiest to start on because it is larger than some of the smaller count 8s where you have to be even more focused and diligent with where you are counting and putting your stitches. A lot of changes in the process of this one as well. As you can see, I have taken up parking, which is really nice for confetti, which is just when you have random, you know, dots or single stitches of a color all over. And because this one is made up of many colors, very close in shade range, and still there's a lot of confetti, I thought that it would be smart to go ahead and look into this technique. And I was right in doing so because it has made this process so much more pleasant. I can just work the color through a square or through multiple squares if I feel like it. And you just find where that thread will be used in the next part that you plan on working in and leave it there so that when you're ready, you can look at your pattern and be able to tell which color that is and where you will continue working on it. This made it so much easier than constantly digging through my thread and cutting off so quickly or trying to work confetti over the whole thing. I just really don't enjoy doing that. So this was a really great alternative for me, and I will definitely be using that if I do more just kind of intense full coverage projects like this. Another technique I picked up while doing this project is gridding. I'm so glad that I decided to do it before getting any further in this, because what gridding showed me was that I made a lot of mistakes. This is no surprise because I'm a very distracted person just naturally, and there is always a lot going on, whether I'm watching TV at night or during the day and my kids are awake and running around. There are always going to be things to distract me, and because I get kind of a tunnel vision and I also don't like to be very thorough with direction, it's just nice to take every precaution that I can, and counting out the grids as they are shown in my pattern was the only step that probably saved this piece of work. So to do that, you want to use a water washable marker, of course, just the fabric markers that you can find at your local hobby store or online. But yeah, that has made probably the largest difference in my work. And while I don't think I will do that on maybe my smaller pieces necessarily, unless I feel the need, it's been invaluable to this one. I also started a new project that I also briefly mentioned last time, which is the dollhouse. And this was from the Etsy store called At Antique Stitch. And I didn't have anything done on it last time, so this is my first update for it. And I'm currently working on the 3rd page for it. So I'm still on the top floor here and just kind of working on the roof and the beginnings of the interior of the house. This one is a really nice change of pace, worked beside my Westy one for obvious reasons. Something that has a lot of visual interest with bright colors and a lot of fun little details in the actual pattern. This is 193 by 261 stitches, and I forgot what count Ada I am working this on. I will put it up. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I'm enjoying both of my stitching projects. Just like my knitting, they are both very different, so I can kind of dive into whichever one I'm in the mood for, because sometimes you get kind of tired of the simplicity of a certain project, and other times you want something a little more challenging. It's always nice to have something to fall back on that kind of balances the other out. I'm going to try to make a lot more progress on these before starting new projects, but I'm not going to make any promises about that. I am still working on my Flaming June. I have just a tiny bit left of that one, so I'm going to finish that one up because I have some really exciting plans for what I want to do with some of my finished projects. But yeah, so a lot of fun stuff with what I've been making. I've been trying to just stick to what I have and not make too many new starts. I hope to be finishing up a lot of stuff and things that have been just kind of sitting as works in progress. I feel like I have a lot of cardigans that I need to either finish up or work on or start, and I'm trying to stagger those between other projects because I'm getting a little cardigan fatigue, but I know it'll pay off in the end. I will wear them more than probably anything else in my wardrobe. But yeah, if you are only interested in the crafting side of things, that is where I will leave you. Thank you so much for watching, and I do have a reading update. I'm going to get my notes ready because I always feel like I forget something that I have been reading. I just completely blank on it because it's not right here in front of me. But I did finish The Fall of Babel by Josiah Bancroft, and it is the final book of the Books of Babel series. There was a lot of excitement for this one for me because it is my favorite current series, and there is a lot that goes into ending a series. I mean, not just reading for the writer as well, that's a lot of pressure, but there's also a weird sort of pressure that comes from reading it too, because it's always there in the back of your mind that this is the end, so you are always wondering and kind of looking and maybe inadvertently trying to get through it a little faster so you can see how everything kind of plays out, especially when it's a sprawling series worked into like a 600-page book. You're always going to want more just because you're not ready for it to end. So I am still processing this one. I am really interested to see how I feel on my second read through, because I am working on going back and reading through the series again now that I have all the information and I can see kind of how things tie together from the start, and they already are kind of, which is really cool. But yeah, there are some things that I don't know how to feel about still because it's so fresh in my mind. And once again, it's an adventure story, which is why I fell in love with these books, because you never know where you're going to end up in this tower, and as you are kind of climbing the ringdoms and meeting their inhabitants, you literally never know what to expect and what is going to come next. So that's always been a real driving force, as well as just the beautiful prose and amazing character work that's done subtly but has a lot of impact, because you are just watching these people grow and it's not exactly asking you to feel a certain way about them, which opens up a lot of room for flaws but growth, and that makes the characters feel more human and therefore relatable, and you therefore care about them more. And the character who is possibly my favorite gets their full arc that has been kind of building over time, and so that was very beautifully done and very relatable. Very interesting that you can still find relatability in these situations that would never ever happen. I feel like what I keep coming back to is probably the ending. I wanted to kind of sit with it, but I do respect it. It was not entirely fulfilling, but I think there was enough that was left open for your own interpretation, so you get kind of your own freedom to choose what you think might or what you want to happen. It kind of depends on the kind of person you are, whether you want to know how everything ties up exactly or whether you are okay with letting some things go or using your own imagination, which I have been forced to do with many of my favorite series lately. And yes, we would like the authors to cater to our every whim and need, but leaving some things open is kind of a gift in itself because you are able to fill in the gaps the way that you want to. So overall, still love the series. It wasn't my favorite of this series, but it didn't hinder the experience for me at all. If anything, I'm really excited to go back to the start and see how I feel about it the second time around. I also read Doomsday book, which is the first of the Oxford time travel series by Connie Willis. And this is obviously a sci-fi and time travel novel. Funnily enough, this was a recommendation by Josiah Bancroft. He was on a live stream recently where he recommended this book. I watched him recently on a live stream hosted by the Library of Alexandria's channel, who is another huge fan of the series and is always really great to see. So I really enjoyed watching him talk a little bit about everything, as well as some of his inspiration. But he said that's what he had read recently and really enjoyed, and because I very much enjoy his work, therefore his taste, I decided to give it a try. Where you are following an Oxford student who majors in history, go back to the 14th century, as well as the present, which is actually the near future of, I want to say 2050, but you are going between these two timelines and how they are kind of connected through the people in both timelines. And I was immediately hooked by this one. And even as you start to put the clues together for yourself over what might be happening in both timelines, there's still this string of dread that kind of pulls you along the entire novel. It is a bit on the longer side with a little over 600 pages, so you really settle in with the characters, and I was very surprised how emotionally impactful it was by the end of it. So that was a great read. I completely recommend, and I am excited to read the next one in the series. After that, I finished Jade War by Fonda Lee, which is the second book in the Green Bones Saga series. I can't say enough about these books. They've completely blown me away. The first one was great, and this one topped that, and I hear that the third one tops this one, so I don't know how they can keep going up from here, because it is already some of the best stuff I've read in a while. So as I'm recording this, we are a day away from the long list announcement of the Women's Prize for Fiction. Last year I was reading a lot more literary fiction, but I have not this year. I've been much more in an escapist mindset, so fantasy and sci-fi have really been scratching that itch. So I will be going into this without a leg up at all, and I have to decide if it's even something that I feel like doing. So last year I read all 6 of the books that were shortlisted, and with the ones on the long list, I read a total of 10 out of the 16. I really enjoyed the experience, and I read some great books, but sometimes I need to be in a certain mood to appreciate the kinds of books, because for the most part they were very bleak. I don't have a problem with reading sad books, and those are stories that need to be told and need to be read so we have a better understanding of ourselves and as other people as a whole. But I do prefer an experience with some ambivalence. So with that and how stressful kind of real life has been lately, I'm not sure if I will have the emotional strength to really give these books a fair chance. I have started one in the hopes of getting a leg up. Like I said, I don't know if this is even going to be on the long list, but I decided to go with one that has been getting a lot of acclaim, has been on other prize lists, and there's been a lot of chatter about it most likely being on this prize list, and that is Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. It is also thick. There's also been a lot of talk that we might have a long list or short list full of bigger books, which also introduces a problem because there's not a lot of time from the time it is announced to when the winner is ultimately revealed. I started Great Circle, and it is kind of a multi-perspective story that spans over time, where you are focusing on a female pilot from the World War II era and a modern day movie star in like 2015 maybe, who is going to portray that pilot in a movie. I got off on the wrong foot almost immediately with this book because there is a lot of upsetting content right at the start. Now, normally I don't have a problem with this, and I think that, of course, it's very important that this kind of thing be explored, but because it didn't work into the narrative, it felt like backstory to backstory, and then it didn't feel warranted and gave me the impression that throughout this book I was going to be emotionally manipulated a lot, which I really don't enjoy just for the sake of it. At over halfway through now, it has held my interest, and I'm looking forward to see how the story plays out and if maybe things do come full circle or the way things play into it. For now, it's kind of middle of the road for me, and more than anything, I'm just ready to be finished with it. So I will get more into that as the lists are actually announced, and I'm excited to see what ultimately makes the long list and decide what I want to do, or if I want to wait for the short list, if I want to do any of it. But yes, as always, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you are finding joy and enjoying everything that you are making and reading and just doing in your lives right now. As always, thank you for being here, and I hope to see you really soon.